right, well, welcome everyone back to BISBA this week. We're so happy to have you guys join us again in this crazy and virtual world right now with a lot of things going on. We're in week 2 of winter quarter. So still at the beginning. Hopefully you guys have all your books and at least are kind of starting to get organized for your classes as well. We're super excited and honored to have guest speaker John Peterson. And he's going to be talking to us a lot about his career as a coach, and we'll kind of dive into a lot of that. We'll have some question and answer that our e-board prepared, so I'll kind of go a little bit back and forth with some formatted questions, but also feel free to throw some questions in the chat while he's speaking, and we'll have some time at the end to really delve in and hear all the questions that you guys have as well. So yeah, so any questions you guys have, feel free to put those in the chat or even use the raise hand feature, all of that good stuff. And yeah, we'll just go ahead and get started. So first off, I'll give a little bit of introduction before I have him speak more exact, I guess, about himself. But like I said, we have John Peterson coming from, well, he was a UC Santa Barbara alum, which is awesome. And then he's also the founder and CEO of the California Basketball Group, LLC. So at UC Santa Barbara, he got a BA in Law and Society and an MA in Sports Fitness Management from University of San Francisco. He was also the former LMU men's basketball associate head coach. And also, fun fact, in 2015, he was inducted into the California Community College Men's Basketball Coaches Association Hall of Fame. And so this is definitely something not to take lightly. Like, this is an amazing opportunity for us to have and speak with someone like this. And also he 14-year former head coach with Ohlone College with a 300 to 126 record, an all-time leader in wins. So that just bridges the surface of kind of who he is. But yeah, John, thank you so much once again for joining us. And we'd love to have you kind of introduce yourself a little bit further, and then we'll dive into a little bit of a question and answer that we have prepared for
Great.
you.
That sounds great. Thanks, Christina, and thanks to everybody that took the time tonight to be on the call. I think what you guys are doing, first of all, is fantastic. So, you don't get a whole lot of, in the UC system, the sports management opportunities and the sports in general opportunities as an academic option. And I was fortunate that when I went through UCSB, I was like the last dumb guy to be admitted to UCSB. I would never get into UCSB today by any stretch of the imagination. But they had a minor program in coaching. And so, it was first aid, it was some, touch on some athletic administration stuff. But the best part of it was they put you into a local high school to coach, depending on whatever your sport was that you wanted to do. So I got placed at Dos Pueblos High School. And I think I still hold the record for largest margin in a loss at like 74 points, something along those lines. We were terrible. We went 1-26, but I was a head coach, of a freshman team in high school at like age 20. And that's kind of when I figured out that is what I wanted to do. Even though at the time, prior to that, I was thinking that maybe I would go into law school because it was kind of a family deal for me. So this goes back to kind of, and I want to talk about this a little bit here tonight. A lot of your journey depends on who you know. Like 90% of your journey is going to depend on who you know. So most of you are probably too young to remember this name. Some of you will recognize it if you're diehard UCLA basketball fans, but you had a head coach there named Ben Howland, who took UCLA to 3 straight Final Fours. Well, when I was at UCSB, I was a student manager on the basketball team, and Ben was the assistant coach. And I would probably say I would spend 3 nights a week in Ben's car or driving Ben, either to go recruit or to go scout or to go do something, because he wanted somebody with him so we could be in the carpool lane driving down into LA or into Orange County. So, you know, Ben has been a longtime friend of mine and got me my start in coaching. And when I got out of Santa Barbara, I had three options, all of which were presented to me because of my relationship to Ben. One was to go be, you know, a graduate student at Utah and work for Rick Majerus. One was to go do the same thing at Long Beach State, and then the other one was at the University of San Francisco, which I ultimately did. And so, you know, a lot of what you do is who you know, and a lot of who you know is dependent on how well you network, which I'll touch on in a little bit too. So long story short, I graduate from Santa Barbara. I take a year off to study for the GRE so I could get into graduate school in this new program at USF, which was sports and fitness management. And at the time, University of Ohio, maybe, Utah for sure, Long Beach State had just started a program. There were maybe 8 to 12 master's programs nationally in sports and fitness management. Now there's a million of them, obviously, some much better than others. And Ohio U at the time was by far the best. But I ended up doing the San Francisco thing, and I was in the very second cohort that went through. And so it was treated kind of like a working professionals master's program. We'd have class one night a week. On a Thursday, you're literally with the same group of people for like 19 months. And you just knock out one class after the other. A lot of beers at the pub on Thursday nights for 19 months. A lot of liar's dice. I mean, it was a great deal. It wasn't a great master's program at the time. It's really good now. It wasn't very good then. But, you know, I got to coach at USF when I was, I don't know, 21, 22, without having played in college, and got the master's degree. And then I survived a firing, which is unusual. So the guy I originally worked for got fired. The guy who replaced him kept me on staff because he couldn't find anybody else that was willing to work for $3,000 a year and live in San Francisco. Then I went to Division II school in Colorado, and I was there for 3 years. We won the national championship in 2000. We lost in the national championship game against the same team, actually, in 1999. And then I got a chance to return to the Bay Area as a head coach at a junior college, which in my coaching journey is far and away the best job I've ever had. And I was there for 14 years. And then I got a little bit bitter, as old people tend to do. I had applied and interviewed and been a finalist for a Division II job that was like right down the street from the junior college I was at, and I didn't get it. And so I hated everybody, because I figured if I couldn't get a job down the street, like literally down the street, when I say down the street, I got no chance of getting a 4-year head coaching job from a junior college position, because, you know, junior college coaches are looked at like, you know, we're lepers. And so I had an opportunity to go to LMU and be the associate head coach. So I passed everything up and rolled the dice and went. You know, the majority of that experience I hated, to be quite honest. But I don't regret making the move. And so I did 2 years there, and then decided that I needed to get out. And what I didn't want to do was I didn't want to move my family again, because I'd already made the move once and my kids were middle school, high school. And so I wanted something that would allow me to stay in the South Bay, because that's where we were living. And, you know, the guy who founded Shoe 360 was a really good friend of mine. And we had been talking off and on, and he asked me if I wanted to come and manage, you know, the facility in Torrance if, you know, they opened it up and started to expand, you know, the footprint of what they were doing. And I jumped at it and I took it. So fast forward, you know, I oversaw this facility and I worked as a corporate employee for like 4 years, almost 4 years on the dot. And then late summer, I put together an equity group. We put some money together to go out and franchise Shoot 360s. So, we'll franchise those out in Southern California, the Bay Area, Utah, Australia. Those will be the first four territories we kind of explore. So my life's completely changed. I've gone from coaching to now, CEOs, whatever. I'm running a business and trying to expand a business. And so totally out of my comfort zone, and I love every single minute of it. So that's kind of my backstory and my journey to this point.
Yeah, no, that was awesome. And I think, yeah, it's super cool to hear you talking about just your experience in the master's program, because me and actually Jada too, who's on this call, we're right now in a graduate program, like a new graduate program at UCLA that's in the education school, but it's like a transformative coaching and leadership program that they started offering. So it's super cool to hear about your experience there. I am curious too. So one of the first questions eBoard was looking at was seeing that experience, one as coaching and then also in like the corporate world too. Was there something that we talked about the differences, but is there something that drove you to that? Is there something that kind of like stays as a constant within those, or brings the similarities as well within those two different roles? Or is it just quite like binary?
Well, I think it's a great question. One of the similarities is this, so when I left LMU to come to work for Shoot 360, my daughter was a freshman at El Segundo High School, and she made the varsity basketball team. And I swear to God, I went to every game, and it was like going to 28 funerals. That was the most unhappy group of young women I'd ever seen in my life, and it made me mad and infuriated me. I never said anything because I didn't want to be that dad. But for whatever stroke of luck, whatever you want to call it, the guy who was coaching them left. The AD lives next door to me, and my job interview was basically, "Hey, do you want to coach the girls team?" I'm a girls high school coach now, right? And so I say that to say this: I've coached girls high school, I've coached boys high school, I've coached men's junior college, men's Division II, men's Division I. I've taken professional players overseas on tours. It's all the same. It doesn't matter the level. And the rush that I get from it is that it keeps me young because I'm around younger people, which I think is important. But the game itself is completely unpredictable. And I like my life being unpredictable. Like, I'm not the kind of person that gets up, makes my coffee or tea, and then immediately goes and does 47 minutes of yoga, and then I'm gonna go cook this, and then I'm gonna go walk this or do this. I can't live my life that way. I want to be like I'm in the circus. I want the phone to be ringing all the time. I want to have to put out a fire. I'd like chaos and disorder in my life, to be quite honest. And so this deal now is like coaching. Coaching's unpredictable. Games are unpredictable. You can go in with the best plan in the world and you have no idea what's coming your way. It's just like competing. And to me, this is the same. And in particular, it's the same because I really don't know, in all honesty, what I'm doing. Like, I'm figuring this thing out, on the fly, and dealing with things that I've never had to deal with in my life or thought I would ever have to deal with in my life. But it came to a point for me, in terms of the decision to do this, that I was either going to rent my life or own my life. And, beginning of my coaching career, I was renting my life. I was an assistant coach. And then I had a period where I kind of owned my life as a head coach at the junior college level. Best jobs in the world, by the way. but I was still a slave to, having to teach my classes when maybe I didn't want to really teach my classes, that kind of thing. And now, and then I go back to LMU, and I definitely didn't own my life at LMU. I was a high paying renter on that deal. And I just have made the decision that, if I want to be at my age, financially, like in a position where, I have a chance for some, money, this is it. And I decided, you know what, I'm going to go for it. And if I fail, I fail. But if I don't do it, I'm never going to get it. And I'm enjoying the journey. So I don't know if that answers your question, but I'm genuinely excited to try to solve the riddles that come with trying to plan out and execute, building 20 facilities in 3 states and another country by the end of 2023, because that's literally what we're trying to do with no money. So you can imagine, there's a lot going on, and it's awesome.
That's so cool. And just to compare the two, like the unpredictability of one of the two different careers, but also just, I think that's something a lot of us as students have to kind of get accustomed to once we're about to prepare for life after college, is that whole journey of unpredictability. And I also think just like everyone can learn a lot from the mindset you have, one as a coach, and two, now in this corporate space as a CEO, too, just how that business and leadership mindset transfers over really well. So one of the things too, relating to that, since you've coached at so many different levels, which I think is really impressive, did you have a specific coaching philosophy that you kind of carried or like learned and developed over time? Or was there something you specifically, like a value or things that you brought into your team and environment?
Yeah, I mean, I suppose so. Look, I'm not one of those I don't, I'm not a slogan guy, and I'm not a mantra guy, and I'm not the guy that's going to put something on the, 3 words on the back of a t-shirt and that's our identity, right? I'm a, hey, we're showing up at this time, we're working, and we're going to work until we're done working. And then we're going to leave the gym, and then here's our game, and here's the team that we're going to go out and obliterate. And then when we win that game, we're going to go right back in the gym the next day, and we're going to put it all on repeat. And when it's all said and done, we're going to, enjoy each other's company while we're doing it. So I've had kind of just a different, I'm mentally I'm messed up, right? So, I was always, and still am, if we lose, it's my fault. If we win, it's the players, right? And if we win, and I'll enjoy it for like 20 minutes, and then I'm right on to practice for the next day or the next game or the next issue or whatever that is, and I just keep rolling through it, because I've just never been emotional highs, emotional lows, the rah-rah speeches, that stuff. At the end of the day, you got to perform and you got to compete, and you got to keep your mind right while you're doing those two things. So I wouldn't say necessarily I have a philosophy. I will say this, and it translates into business too. You're only as good as the people that are around you. So, I mean, I've been fortunate to win a lot of basketball games as a head coach. I mean, I'm not an idiot. I have really good players, and I have really good assistant coaches. But more importantly, I had really good players where I could organize them, do the things that I needed to do, deal with them the way I needed to deal with them, and on game night, turn them loose. And, obviously we won 70% of the games. So 7 times out of 10, we had better players than the other team, right? I mean, that's really what it comes down to. And if any coach tells you, or CEO or whatever tells you, it's me, It's not. It's the people that are around them. And the perfect example is, you know, we're going to open up our next 2 stores in Orange County here, you know, in this quarter. And I'm recruiting the hell out of a girl in Indianapolis to move out here and run them. And it's a bear, like, to get her to, you know, the money, the whole deal. It's like being right back on the recruiting trail in college. And, you know, I'm going to get her because I just, that's the way I recruit, right? I just think I'm going to get her. I'm going to get her. And I'll have a plan B if I don't. But if I get her, like, I don't have to worry about Orange County. Like, I can just wipe my hands and be done with it. And she's going to make me look really smart. And that's the goal, is to hire people that make me look really smart, right? And I'll tell you guys a funny story. So one of the student managers at Santa Barbara when I was there is a guy named Chris Carlson, who is your associate AD for men's basketball at UCLA, okay? And he and I have been friends, obviously, since the 90s, early 90s. And we were talking on the phone today about a kid who had played at I asked him, why is the University of Washington so bad? And, you know, long story short, it came down to selection of people, right? It came down to selection of people and who's in your locker room. And Chris had been a head coach too, and we were just talking about the fact that when you're recruiting against a kid, let's say, that's in your same league, so you're gonna have to play against them 2 nights a year. The question you ask yourself is, do I want to have to deal with them 365 days a year or just 2 days a year? And if you only want to deal with them 2 days a year, you don't care if he ends up at the school in your league. Even if you know you might lose both those games because of them, there's 363 days you don't have to deal with that dude, and that's pretty good feeling. So a lot of this, in terms of the success of what you're doing, is, you know, making sure that you have the right people beside you and behind you and in front of you. And really the most important thing is, when you know you have them, you let them do what they do well, so that they can fail if potentially, and then pick themselves back up and get right back after it. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, it does. And I think you just, like, tying in the aspect of, or how important it is to surround yourself with the right people, surround yourself with people who work hard. That is really impactful too. And I think, going off of that, one of the things we were talking about in one of my coaching classes that I was in last week is, and I want to get your take on it. It's kind of I guess, like a debate or opinion, but one of the things we're talking about is if work ethic is, like, fixed, or if it can be developed. A lot of times there's one side where people think, oh, if someone just doesn't work hard, or they're just not going to work hard and something like that, like, there's a limit to that. On the other hand, there's the perspective where there's not really any excuse to the concept of hard work. Like, everyone can kind of improve and get better and work hard. So I was just curious, from your coaching perspective and mindset, if you think that, or maybe if you've seen that in your players too in the past, like, if hard work is something that you saw as more of a fix or a personality trait, or if it was something that developed because of, I don't know, influences from a team or something.
I mean, it's hard to develop it, I can tell you that. And I would think that that's probably applicable to business too. I mean, I think it's why people in business like taking people that are athletes to work in their business, because typically athletes are self-starters. Typically athletes know how to push themselves to a limit that most people don't really want to explore physically and mentally. I think, you know, how hard you play or compete and how hard you work is a skill set, like any other skill set. The ability to run fast, the ability to jump high, the ability to throw the ball at a certain, you know, velocity. It's equally important. And, you know, I don't know, what do we have on here? We have 30 people on here now. I mean, ask yourselves this right now. You don't have to answer it out loud, but are you entitled? How many of you are entitled, right? By what would be a common definition of entitlement, right? And listen, I'm not sitting here in judgment, because my son's entitled, and so is my daughter. And there's times I want to bonk them right upside the head and slap them right back into line, right? And, you know, is the mentality entitlement, or is the mentality like, you know, trailer park, and I want to get out of the trailer park? See, and I grew up spoiled and entitled. My dad was an appeals court justice in the state. I was mischievous. I knew I would never get in trouble because of my dad's name, because he'd always get me out of it. I was a punk. I was a country club, silver spoon, the whole deal. And ironically, it was the kids that are like me, grew up like me. I hated coaching them. Like I had a 3-car garage rule in junior college. If you lived in a house with a 3-car garage, I was not going to recruit you. I couldn't, because I knew I couldn't coach you. Now, if you had spent time in a jail cell, you were my kind of guy. I was going to take you 100 times out of 100, because I wanted dogs, right? I just wanted people that have had life hard. I wanted people who wanted to improve what had been hard in their life. Those are the kind of people that, you know, I actually love coaching them. I mean, I feel like I have 50 sons right now, and you know, they came from some backgrounds that were absolutely incredible from all parts of the country. Like you just couldn't even believe, like a house with no windows. They had the holes in the wall where the windows went. They didn't have any windows, you know, that kind of thing. So, you know, the whole work ethic thing, you know, I think that's something that you can be taught, but it's a hell of a lot easier to have that instilled in you if your parents are doing it for you. You know, if you've got that kind of self-starter mentality and somebody that's kind of pushing you, and it's really hard, in my opinion, to make it in anything if, you know, I mean, I think the word grind is overused, but, you know, you can't be afraid to like do things that you don't want to do. I'll give you 2 examples. So, you know, being an assistant coach at a Division II is thankless, okay? Being a head coach at a junior college is 10 times as thankless. So when you're the head coach at the junior college, you're driving the van, you're cleaning the floor, you're doing the laundry, you're buying the food, you're coaching the team, you're meeting with admin. You pick an item that you think would take place in a team deal, and you are in charge of all of it. You're scraping the gum off the floor, right? So, you know, when I came to Shoot 360 and we built this thing, and it was a pearl when we built it, and it still looks great right now. I'd come in every morning and clean the bathrooms, even after my staff had done it the night before, just because I wanted them to look better than what my staff did. When I'm here, we close now because of COVID twice a day. I go do the bathrooms when I'm here. I want my staff to see me doing the bathrooms. Like I'll get on my knees and I will clean around the base of the toilet. I mean, we got 10-year-olds with no aim, right? I'm cleaning, I'm doing it. And so, you know, I mean, the more nothing's beneath you, and it goes back to that whole entitlement thing, I mean, the farther you're going to end up going. Because you're going to end up working for somebody that's entitled, I can tell you that. And they're going to want somebody that isn't entitled, that's going to do all the things that they don't want to do.
No,
Does that answer that, Christina?
Yeah, no.
And listen, guys, I apologize. I go off on some tangents sometimes. I'm a little bit, you know, whatever.
No, it's great. We love it. We're throwing in some of your quotes in the chat. So definitely keep it coming. And even I just like I can't imagine. I feel like if I was working there and like just seeing your boss, I feel like coming to work with kind of that attitude, the understanding of that work ethic and also that humility. It kind of reminds me of the show Undercover Boss. I feel like I would be thrown off.
Right, yeah, no, it's a great show. It's a great show.
So it definitely reminds me, I think, of that. But it's something for all of us, I think, to remember, like moving forward and however, wherever we are, wherever we go. And so
Well,
I'm
listen,
gonna,
let me add something to that too. Like, I
yeah,
mean, I'm like far from perfect, right? And I have a lot of flaws, but I mean, I just want to be able to be surrounded by people that take pride in their job and know how to do their job, and maybe every now and then kind of need a little bit of a nudge. But for the most part, I just want them to be able to be good at what they do, and that goes back to being, whether it's an assistant coach or whether it was a player. I mean, look, when you're a player, you come to the gym, you got practice, you have a responsibility to compete, and amongst other things. And those are just baseline responsibilities, right? I don't need to do that, right? And I listen, in junior college, literally, it's probably changed a little bit now, but when I was early 2000s, I could literally say whatever I wanted to say to another human being, and I would never be fired, right? And so just let your imagination run wild about the most vile things you probably heard about a coach saying to a player, and you could probably squeeze me into that conversation in some form or another. I'd like to think the difference is we could go laugh about it afterwards in my office, and I never went 24 hours without cleaning up an issue. Now when I'm coaching the girls, because obviously I can't coach girls like I coach junior college men, and we get a little bit more emotional in the gym, with the high school girls, that aren't really necessarily basketball players per se. If I'm going out and walking my dog at night, I'm on my phone texting and solving problems that, in all likelihood, I probably created during the day, right? So, there has to be some humility. There has to be, a willingness to do things that common people would do, for lack of a better term. And you just want to be going through your whole journey, like, you know what annoys you about other human beings. Don't be that human being. I mean, that really, if you're going to take any advice, that's it. Don't be what annoys you. And if you can do that, then I think you can be all right.
That actually kind of answered the next thing I was going to ask, was how do you become aware of, like, if you're entitled, or how do you become aware if you're not actually like a super hard worker? Because I think a lot of us could reflect on who we are and have our own skewed perspective of that. Yeah, I work hard. No, I'm not entitled, and then not realize at times maybe.
There's no doubt. No, there's no doubt. Like, I'll walk through here sometimes and I'll see a paper towel on the floor. And sometimes I'll just sit there and I'll just watch and see, how long my staff's going to take before one of them picks it up before I have to. And then I'll go pick it up, and then I'll tell everybody I picked it up. Like, what are you guys doing? Just pick it up. Right? It's not that big. Just pick up the paper. I mean, go, if you're worried about a germ, go get another paper towel or put on a glove and pick the thing up and throw it away. But it looks terrible. If there's no paper towels in a 19,000 square foot facility on the floor except for one, it looks terrible. So you got to pick it up. And, I don't know how I mean, it helps if people tell you you're entitled, but I mean, who's going to be that confrontational, right? I don't know. I mean, I was listening to a podcast today. I don't know if you guys know who Tim Ferriss is. He wrote the 4-Hour Work Week and like the 4-Hour Body. And it's really not about the books, but his podcasts are really good because he asks really, really good questions. And one of the guys he had on was Jerry Seinfeld. It was a recent one, and he was talking about the Seinfeld show and how he was, meticulous about every little detail: a line, a script, a body movement, characters, who's portraying them, how he goes about writing his comedy, what that routine is, the whole thing. But the thing that stuck out to me was, like, he doesn't do the word wasn't conflict, but I'm going to use conflict. He doesn't do like people being salty. So he'll just walk right up to somebody and say, okay, well, what's the issue? Let's get this taken care of right now. And he just goes and takes it head on. And I thought it was awesome because most of us don't do that. Most of us avoid it. And then we send a text to our friend instead of just dealing with the confrontation straight on and getting it out of the way so you can enjoy your day. And those are tough things, to do. And most people don't want to hear where they're deficient, right? Most people don't want to hear that. And hey, I used to take my junior college teams. I swear to God, this is a true story. And I would line them up after about 3 weeks of practice, 1 to 15. 1 was the best player, 15 was the worst. And I just look at him, I go, deal with it. This is what I think of you guys as players. He's the best player, he gets the most shots. You're the worst player, and if you want to be up there, then these are all the heads you got to cut off to get to where you need to go. That's how I coached. So, there was no, I didn't allow for a whole lot of entitlement, right? And I don't know about their parents or whatever, but I just think making your, okay, here's a question for you guys, especially for those of you that live in an apartment, okay? How many of you had your parents set up your utilities for you? Right? So I moved my son into his first apartment for college yesterday, and I didn't do any of that for him. I gave him the 800 numbers, and I told him, here's the deal. If you got a question, ask your mom. You got to figure it out. You got to figure it out at some point, right? And so, to me, the more, my ideal fantasy camp would be to take fathers and their daughter or their son and go spend a weekend someplace, and we're going to figure out how to balance a checkbook. We're going to figure out how to change a flat tire. We're going to figure out how to put oil in the car. We're going to figure out how to clean an oven, right? All these things that we all take for granted. To me, that would be like the ultimate fantasy camp. Like a mother-daughter, mother-son, father-daughter, father-son, fantasy life skills camp.
I know that would come in handy for a lot of us. I think a lot of college students, especially, I know I had to kind of learn the hard way, just like understanding tire pressure. And so
Right?
I quickly had to call my dad or FaceTime my dad about that when I saw my tires were far too low and people started bringing it up to me and asking me
There you
about it.
go.
So
See?
I know that would have been a beneficial thing. So I'm going to open it up to the audience. I see Colin, you have a question, so you can go ahead and start it out. But anyone else too, feel free to ask questions after.
Yes, thank you, Christina, and thanks, John. Really appreciate all the wisdom that you're sharing with us tonight. So one question I had for you is just speaking about some of those players where you took from bad situations into your junior college. I was curious of some examples where you took them from those bad situations and then turned them into success stories and what those look like.
Well, I mean, I don't listen. I would never ever take credit. It's a great question. I would never take credit for turning them into anything, right? I mean, if you're talking about poverty and growing up in poverty, and I didn't, right? So, I don't want this to come off like I've got all the answers. Somebody's got to break the cycle, right? If you're going to get out, somebody has to break the cycle, especially if it's been like, an institutional deal. And my whole thing to those kids at the time was that came from those environments was, hey, this is why you need to get your AA degree. This is why I make you take your hat off in a classroom, because I don't want you to be judged by some 6-year-old white woman who doesn't understand why you got your hat on all crooked, right? This is about getting you to a point where you don't have to go back home, right? So, I mean, to your point, there are, right off the top of my head, 6 guys who still live in the Bay Area that either came from New Jersey or Philadelphia. And, or one from Flint, Michigan, actually, too. The guy from Flint, Michigan is producing a documentary on the water crisis in Flint. And he graduated from Menlo College, which, pretty good school. One guy is a teacher and an educator. at what amounts to, in Pleasanton, which is obviously a relatively affluent area. And he was the guy that, would literally be walking down the street with his older cousin. His older cousin would point to somebody across the street and say, "You need to go fight that guy." And like literally, he would just put the book bag down and go across and fight just a total stranger at 12, right? I mean, this is the kind of upbringing. I had a guy who ended up being the state player of the year, and he was the state player of the year. He got inducted into the Stanislaus State Hall of Fame. And between the ages of 8 and 14, he had 6 parents or guardians die while he was in their care. Didn't graduate from high school, flunked out of 2 or 3 other junior colleges. It took some miraculous maneuvering on my part to even get him eligible. Even more miraculous was he was probably smoking, let's call it 9 blunts a day. I got him down to maybe 2, right? I mean, he just can't function, but he's one of those guys who couldn't function without it, right? Now he works at a rec department. He's working with kids. He's coaching kids. And he's just like this giant, 325-pound, teddy bear. So now, and when you talk to them, they all talk about how, their greatest, time in basketball, because all of them went on to play at the 4-year level, was being at the junior college because, you had to literally compete for everything, like just food and money and a job and a chance and an opportunity. And, so, I mean, those guys, man, I love all those guys. They're unbelievable. It's a great question. I mean, there'd be 30 of those stories, literally. I had a guy who was 7'4". He was taken out of a refugee camp in Kakuma in Kenya. He fled Sudan as a 12-year-old when his village got attacked. He got separated from his parents. He spent 6 years as an unaccompanied minor in Kakuma. It's Kakuma, I think. Look that up on Google and see if you'd want to live there. You want to talk about not being entitled. UN dropped your food off once a week. You got food once a week, and then you had to battle everybody to make sure they didn't steal your food. School was under a tree. I mean, it was unbelievable. And he was literally 7'4", and he could not read or write in his own language, and he's coming to junior college, right? So I ended up having him for 3 years because he gray shirted a year, and now he's like a DJ and he's a bouncer, and he's a U.S. citizen. It's an unbelievable story, but literally he hasn't seen his parents since he was 12 or 10 or something like that. Yeah. Wow. And the walk from Sudan to Kenya, they had to do at night because they were being hunted by the soldiers that attacked South Sudan. And so, they couldn't go during the daylight. So they're walking at night, and he's literally by himself, wow. Yeah. So those are the kind of stories that are, you just don't, you don't get that when you're coaching at UCLA. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
you don't get that.
Certainly not. I appreciate you sharing all those. So that's certainly some incredible stories. And it's amazing what the power of sports holds and what it can do and the opportunities it can create. I had one more question for you, if that's all right.
Yeah, sure.
And that was, speaking about the girl you're trying to recruit from Indiana, what makes her so special and highly touted? Like, what value does she bring to the table?
That's such a great question. So she's managing the facility in Indianapolis right now. She's a corporate employee. So she has the expertise of managing it, and it's a terrible facility in terms of location. It was poorly planned. It should have never been put there, but it was. And she stuck with it. And man, you want to talk about working hard. So she played at Indiana. She was all Big 12 or whatever it was. She's played overseas. She's just been a phenomenal athlete on a really high level, self-made. So she understands, the value of working hard and what comes out of that. She's got a great way with people. These facilities, I mean, this is not really basketball. This is sales and customer service is what it is. That's what it is at the end of the day. You've got to get paying members. This is LA Fitness for basketball. This is 24. I mean, I'm being, you know, a little bit broad in that description, but you got to come in, you got to do the sales bit. You've got to sign up for a membership, and then you get access to do it. And, you know, there's less density in terms of number of people, so the relationships become stronger. But I mean, she's unbelievable. She's organized. She's detail oriented. She knows how to manage other people. She knows what qualities she wants to look for in people that she wants to work with. It just makes it super easy. That's a great question.
So building off that, what's the sales pitch to her to try and get her to come out here and leave her project that she's taken from infancy to sounds like a lot better place?
Well, I mean, have you been to Indiana? I mean,
not really.
Yeah,
Maybe
me.
once. Yeah.
Listen, just trust me. All right, you don't want to be there. I mean, would you rather be in Indiana or would you rather be in Orange County?
Right? I like Orange County.
Yeah. So weather's definitely part of it, right? In fact, her final two choices were UCLA and Indiana coming out of high school.
Wow.
And weather's part of it. That's part of the pitch. But the reality is, she's stuck, and she's not there. There's no upward mobility in what she's doing. She knows it. I know it. She knows I know it. And I can offer her opportunities that she can't get doing what she's doing. And, you know, I got to make the money right. And so, you know, I've got a bit of a threshold here for a little bit, but I mean, if she's not making double what she's making now in a year, then I hired the wrong person, and I've told her that. So, yeah. So it's more about it. A lot of it's about money and opportunity, and just kind of, you know, being able to be free to kind of do whatever you want to do, you know, in terms of the work deal, you know. So.
Yeah, that's really cool. Thank you. I see Drew.
Yep.
His hand is up.
Yeah, hi, John. My name is Drew Arguelles. I just wanted to thank you again for taking the time out of your day.
Yeah, my pleasure.
Speak with us. I can probably speak for all of us, but it was very insightful and motivating. So thank you again.
Yeah, my pleasure.
But I had a few things. I'm currently a manager for UCLA's men's basketball team. So when you brought up that carpool lane story with Ben Howland, definitely made me laugh because it definitely hit home for me. I totally understand the random and crazy things you have to do as a manager. So yeah, but my question was that going back, I remember you stated that you got your bachelor's in Lawn Society. Was that correct?
That's correct.
And then you pursued the master's program in sports and fitness management.
Right.
Did you ever think about going towards the agency or basketball operations route?
A little bit.
Side of things, and what made you what made you go the coaching route instead?
Great question. Well, let's go back to your statement about being a manager and going back to entitlement. Okay. I don't know Mick Cronin at all. I've never met him. There's no entitlement right now. I can tell that watching his teams play. And I know what it looked like, you know, before he got there, right? Just watching it. I mean, and some people would say, you know, this is boring, right? Because it looks like it's the first team to like 58 points is going to win a game when you're playing UCLA, right? Because it's just a grind. But I think he saw what the issue was, and he's come in and tried to address the issue. And I know you're not going to share it here, but I know he's not afraid to get after people in the practice building. That's not happening, right? So, I mean, he's going to let people know what he thinks. And most of the guys that are on that roster have probably never really had anybody talk to him in a way that he talks to him. I'm guessing, I think I'm probably right just by the way the discipline in the game. You don't need to say anything. You don't want to out anybody. So good for you. So this is the coaching deal, right? I thought I was going to go to law school. Going back to entitlement, my dad at one point represented Guam in a civil case many years ago. And one of the guys that he tried that case with, it was huge. I mean, he was in Guam for like a year. One of the guys he tried that case with ended up being the president of the Import-Export Bank of the United States in Washington, D.C. I don't even know if that's still a thing. It might be. I have no idea. I don't even know what they do there. Okay. Well, my dad got me an internship at the Export-Import whatever bank in Washington, D.C. So, you know, I got a seersucker suit. You know, I'm Mr. Capitol Hill. I'm going to be the ambassador to Sweden. I'm going to go to law school. This was the deal, right? And I had some, you know, friend of a friend's favor BS, you know, internship that I didn't really do anything for. I mean, it was whatever. But I met a guy working at the bank who coached the AAU team. And every weekend, this dude was gone. He was going to Florida. He was going here. You know, I don't know. He had 15-year-olds, 12-year-olds, whatever it was. And he just couldn't stop talking about it, right? I thought, man, that kind of sounds pretty cool. And I went back to Santa Barbara, and I was going to transfer to UC Davis. Don't even ask me why anybody would think about leaving Santa Barbara to go to Davis. And I was gonna major in they had international relations or something like that, because I swear to God I wanted to be like the ambassador to Sweden. That's what I was gonna. That was like my vision. Okay. Well, you know, I had my first quarter at Santa Barbara. I flunked a class called the Fairy Tale. Swear to God, I flunked. I got an F in the Fairy Tale because I never went. And so Davis didn't accept me. And so it was a godsend, because I would go play basketball every day outside on the courts at Rob Gym. And one of the guys that would play, and I would play with all the time, was one of the younger assistant coaches named Ray Lopes. And Ray ended up being head coach at Fresno State, but he was in Oklahoma. He was in a bunch of different places. He's out of coaching now. And he's the one that said, hey man, you ought to come be a manager. And then I, you know, started going to practices and realizing, yeah, that's pretty cool. And then I got a taste of coaching. You know, listen, we were 1-26 with that very first high school team I coached. And, you know, the one win, you would have thought we won a national championship. And just the feeling of doing that, I mean, I was like hooked. I just knew that's what I wanted to do. And I'm hanging out with the coaches, right? Like I'm literally, I mean, there were much less strict rules back then in terms of what you could and couldn't do. Like you could go live scout in person, so you could go watch your opponents play in person, which you can no longer do, right? So I'm literally with these guys, the assistant coaches, 3, 4, 5 nights a week, driving to wherever in the car, and you're just, you know, you're hanging out with coaches. I thought it was the greatest thing ever. And that's how I got the bug and how I got in.
Well, thank you. Yeah, no, thank you for asking all those or answering all those questions. I want to open up still if there's any other questions from anyone else. I know we're right around 7 p.m., so our hour's almost up. But if there are any other questions too, feel free to ask now, kind of last chance.
Hey, John.
Yeah.
Hey, what's up, man?
How's it going?
Good. How are you?
Good. Good to see you. Just one final question I had is, if you had one left piece of advice for us, what would that be?
I got a great piece of advice. Okay. First of all, you got to learn from other people's mistakes, and here was mine. Okay. I jump into this sports and fitness management program, right? Which now is, I mean, literally, if you were to go through the front office staff and support staff of any major sports organization in Southern California, there's somebody from USF on staff somewhere. Ticket office, corporate sales, whatever it is, there's somebody there, right? I go 19 months or whatever it is with this group of 30 people. Let's call it 20 people. I mean, literally every Thursday night, if we get out of class at 10, we would close the pub down at 2, and the group was, you know, pretty strong. I mean, there was like half of us would go, like literally every Thursday for 19. I mean, we saw divorces, marriages, kids, infidelity, you name it. We saw the whole thing in this group for 19 months. And the mistake, I keep in touch with one person in that group, and that's it. And I kick myself all the time for, well, I guess I could chalk it up to arrogance on my part. Like, well, why will I need these people? Like, well, what are these people? I'm thinking back then, you know, I'm in my 20s, and I'm a hotshot Division I assistant coach in a shitty program. But you know, I think I'm the real deal. And why am I going to need these people that I'm taking this master's deal with? And what I've come to learn now, you know, 30 years later, is, you know, I don't know if I would have needed them, but maybe I could have helped them, right? And so I've tried as best I can, you know, especially in the last, say, 10 or 15 years of my life here, to really be a connector of people, to help people go from one place to another, to going back to Chris Carlson, the AD at their UCLA. He calls me 2 days ago looking for a place to practice in the Bay Area next Friday. So I said, give me 5 minutes. I make 2 phone calls, and they're practicing in Santa Cruz next Friday, right? And I'll never ask for anything from Chris, right? So Chris asks me something, I take care of it. I don't expect anything back. So my thing to you guys, my point in all that is this: the more you network, because clearly, if you got into UCLA, you're not stupid, okay? If you got into UCLA, you're probably pretty well connected already in certain facets and in certain areas. And if you're not making a conscious effort to utilize this group right here to network, to connect, to help with, and literally you need to do it with no expectation of getting anything back. Everything's about pay it forward, pay it forward, pay it forward. Not what are you doing for me? What are you doing for me? What are you doing for me? Like for me, Connor, if I were to do something for you, I would thank you. I'm cool. I don't need you now to do something for me. And I think if you have that mentality, first of all, your life becomes way simpler because you're not keeping score, right? You'll figure out in a hurry, and this is what I've done. I've been really generous since I've been here. I've been really generous with this facility. And in return for my generosity, I've bartered, right? I've asked for something. So like I had a guy come in here that is really well known in the skill training circles. I won't name the names of the people he trains because that'll give it away. You know, he's probably charging, and he's good. Like he's really good. And he brought one client in here, a WNBA player, and they trained in here for like 3 months. You know, this is like 2 or 3 years ago, and I never charged him a dime, in large part because the WNBA player I liked and admired. She came and practiced with my high school team one day. She came and gave the pregame speech the night we won the league title. So she did some things like that were incredible. So I don't need any money. Year 2, the guy wants to come back. And I said, okay, yeah, let's do it. But let's trade something. How about, you know, every now and then you work my son out. And so we finally organized a time to do it. He's got these kind of young guys that are helpers. And, you know, they go to do the workout and he turns it over to the young guy that's the helper. Well, shit, if I wanted a 21-year-old guy to work out my son, I mean, are you kidding me? I know more. If I could put everything that kid knew about basketball in a thimble, you know, I mean, it was crazy. So I was pissed, right? I was thoroughly pissed. Next time he wanted to come in, the rate was $225 an hour. Never heard from him again. So, you know, I'm a one-time guy, is my point, right? So I'm gonna be generous with my time. I'm gonna be generous with my energy. I'm gonna be generous with what I can give. I think it's a healthy way to live. And then, you know, I expect that somebody's, you know, gonna screw me at some point, and then I just write it off, and I don't really I just move on to the next one. And that tells you who your real people are, right? And who your real connections are, and who you can count on. And the older you get, the smaller you want your true circle to be. You know, you get older, your connections will be, you know, 1 or 2 steps removed instead of maybe 8, 9, or 10 steps removed. But you guys need to figure out a way to connect either amongst each other or connect out in the community, you know, with an internship or what have you. And you can't make the mistake I made. Listen, I was arrogant now, okay? And I thought like I had all the answers. And I didn't realize I didn't have all the answers till I was like, you know, 33. And actually, you know, I'm a head coach at the junior college. I took a team that won 9 games the year before I got the job. And then we won 25 my first year, and then like 23, 22. Okay. I mean, because I just turned a 9-win team into, you know, a perennial playoff team and top 20. And I got lazy on recruiting. The next year we got the crap kicked out of us because I thought it was about me, and I didn't realize it was about players. And the light bulb switched for me as we got smashed. We were like 15-15. It was the worst season we ever had. Didn't make the playoffs. I literally, when I got the phone call that we didn't make the playoffs, lined everybody up outside my office, 14 of them. I cut all of them but one. I brought one guy back from that team. I hated all those guys. I couldn't stand them. And I recruited them, so it's my fault. I figured I could go get whatever group of guys. I could just go get the first five people out of Ralph's and go win a state title. That was my attitude. And clearly that wasn't the case, and nor is it ever. And so I think connecting, doing things for other people without expecting anything in return, the entitlement piece, but staying within this group, even as people go off and graduate and starting, because you never know where all of you are going to end up and how that thing's going to circle. So you have an opportunity right now to get so far ahead of all your other peers. It's incredible. And I would suggest you would take advantage of that.
Thank you. Yeah, no, thank you for those like last aspects of advice. Thank you, Connor, for asking that too. I think that's a great way to end our session today, and just kind of reiterating your points of being genuine, not being transactional, continuously like working hard, remembering where you come from, stay from that like humble mentality too. I think those are characteristics all of us can have as people, regardless of the type of career we go into. So thank you once again for all of that advice, and we're super grateful to have you to kind of, I guess, close up our presentation too. Thank you all too for everyone who attended tonight's session with John. I think we all learned a lot, especially all the advice that he gave, and something I think we can all take away something from something that he said today. So thank you again, John, for coming. And just last notes too, as well, for the members. I know Colin put the attendance sheet in the chat as well. So if you didn't fill that out, please fill that out. And also last thing, our news for next week is we'll have a meeting at the same exact time, same Zoom link. We'll have the CEO of iBlack coming in, Peter Beveridge. So he'll be coming in to speak to us as well about his experience, another CEO. So it's going to be exciting to hear from him as well. But thank you, John. Thank you for coming in today and sharing your time and wisdom. And I know we learned a lot from it.